I'm your host, Madeline Key. This event today with the legendary inventor is sponsored by IDiyas. The mission of IDiyas is to celebrate inventors and bring the global patenting and inventing community together. What are you going to invent and patent in 2024? Please visit IDiyas.com for new insights every single week about inventors, patents, and innovation. Today, our wonderful guest is Philippe Kahn, the serial innovator and legendary technology founder. He is the named inventor on more than, I believe, 235 issued patents. He's joining us from Santa Cruz, California, where he has an epic life that we'll talk about a little bit later. Thank you again for joining us. I'd like to share a little bit about Philippe's background before we get started. He is a mathematician and a self-described builder. His journey as a founder and leader of 4 groundbreaking companies is nothing short of remarkable. His first 3 companies were acquired for millions of dollars. Today, he's at the helm of his 4th company, which is an AI leader. His ventures include Borland, a pioneering software company, Starfish Software, which was later acquired by Motorola and Google, and Lightsurf Technologies, innovators in digital imaging. Currently, like I mentioned, he's stealing Fullpower AI, a Santa Cruz-based powerhouse in deep learning and generative AI sensing platforms. Remarkably, his technology has already deployed in over 60 countries, where it's revolutionizing sectors like life sciences, health, wellness, biotechnology, and more. I'm extremely excited to ask Philippe numerous questions about inventing and entrepreneurship and patenting because he has truly done it all. Like I mentioned earlier, we'd really like to hear your questions for Philippe. So please, we may not be able to get to every single one, but make great use of the chat function, which you actually need to click to open at the top of your screen. Okay, let's get into it. First, I wanted to ask a little bit about AI, considering that 2023 was such a huge year. Philippe, can you tell us a little bit? Clearly, you're a leader. You're already deployed in 60 countries, so this is nothing new to you. This is something you've been working on for a while now. When you were starting Fullpower, were there problems you set out to solve? What was the origin? Can you help us understand a little bit?
Yeah, so we started the company, a little over 10 years ago, and it was part of the rebirth of AI. If you remember, I mean, you may not know that there was a big, hot part of AI in the 70s, early 80s, and then it kind of died off. There wasn't enough power to power AI, basically, and we felt that the concept of AI is to make predictions, and how do you make predictions is you need a lot of data, and if you have a lot of data, you need to crunch all that data, and in order to crunch that data, you need a lot of computing power, and it has to be real time and all that, and so build the right models and the proper models, etc. The concepts of AI, the core, were developed a long time ago, but we didn't have the power to do it, and so. After when I started my 4th company, which is Fullpower AI, I thought that what would be really interesting is to focus on what AI could do within the realm of sensing and biosensing, and so that was the idea. The concept is that if you can make really intelligent systems that can sense the world, whether it's biosensing or sensing, you can create some really interesting solutions that weren't possible before. A perfect example is if you take a mattress, if you can make the mattress smart and be able to predict how you sleep, why you sleep, what position you should sleep, and whether there are pressure points, and whether you're sleeping at the right temperature, and if that mattress and that bed can adapt itself to what you're doing, that's fantastic. But you have to do it in a very non-invasive way, automatic way. It has to be real time. This is a system that people spend a third of their lives in a bed, and that's 8 hours a day of a lot of data and all that, and real-time processing. That requires a lot of intelligence. That requires key models. And that's kind of the first, immediate applications we looked at. Other applications would be things like skincare. We always say that I always thought that when we started a company, there were three things that people really wanted. People wanted a smartphone because everyone wanted one in their hands, obviously. People always want to look good, and people want to sleep. And so skincare, cosmetics, dermatology, and all that we thought would be really important. And sleep would be essential because every mammal has to sleep, in particular humans, and sleep deprivation is a big deal. So that's kind of the practical problem we were looking at. But initially, in order to even be able to solve those problems, you had to build a technology platform. Building a technology platform is not like having a marketing idea, saying, oh, I have a marketing idea, I'm going to test it here, I'm going to test it, if it fails, I don't care, I got a. You can't do that with technology. With technology, you have to apply craftsmanship, you have to invest in the future, and we did. We put in about 400 person hour day years into the system, and 400 person years, which is a very large investment. We invested about $75 million in the platform in order to get there and have a platform that we can then apply to solutions and deploy around the world. And that's basically the challenge of investing in technology. It's very different than if you have an idea. I want to do a pet rock. I have an idea. Here's a pet rock. I'm going to try some marketing things, and I'm going to do a little direct mail here, direct things here, and all that. Oh, maybe it works, and I don't need to take a big risk. And technology doesn't work like that. And so the path of inventing and building technology is an arduous path, but it's a fantastic path. But you have to really invest in it, and that's how I wanted, in a not a short form, answer your question. Can't hear you. You must be on mute.
Hello, everyone. There's a lot of difficulties today. Thank you for that great answer. Philippe, you described inventing as arduous. Is that something you realized it would be when you set out to invent, or is that something you discovered over the years? And how do you handle the difficulty that comes with inventing?
Ideas are, everybody has ideas, and this is, I think, that the challenge we all have. Execution is everything, okay? Because an idea without proper execution, even if you have, the idea of creating a marketing service or something like that, that doesn't require technology investment. You require some kind of an angle, something like that. The execution is very difficult. It's very challenging, and you see that. You see that. For example, the concept of Amazon creating an online store. The idea is not difficult. It's the technology itself is not a big mystery. But managing the process of growing that, creating Amazon, making it work, making it scalable, and doing that's really hard. And Jeff did an amazing job at nurturing that from the beginning to where Amazon is. And so, but there's no difficulty in the concept. Oh, I'm going to be the world store, or whatever you call that. Yeah, sure. I mean. But you don't just test it and say, oh, I'm going to try it a little bit. You have to build that infrastructure. So there's hard work there. You have to build a team, and you have to have the patience to know that complex technology doesn't happen overnight. It's arduous in that way. And of course, as you manage a process, for example, in our case of spending several years building a platform before you can actually see the fruit of the platform, you have to carry the vision, continue the vision, and manage a team that are humans like you are, and that also are impatient and want to see it, want to see results, etc., and be able on the way to adapt to circumstances. Right. And it's always the most important thing. You asked a question. I would say the most important book to read is Darwin's The Evolution of the Species, because there is no question that we have to adapt. Basically, in when we build something, and the arduity is that we have to evolve. It's not the smartest or the strongest that will survive, is the
Mm.
ones that are the most adaptive to change. And
Mm.
and what is arduous is it's like climbing being a mountaineer in a very complex, the most complex mountain. You can't say, I'm just going to do it, I'm going to follow this path. As you climb the path, things change, ice comes, a storm
Yes.
comes, and all that. You need to adapt. And so it's arduous, like climbing a mountain. But
Mm.
when you get to the top, the view is beautiful.
Is singular. Thank you for that answer. I mean, that leads into so many incredible follow-up questions. Some things that come to mind is you talked about pivoting and adapting, because what goes through me is, okay, it's going to take a while, it's going to be arduous, you need to be patient, but how do you know you're marching in the right direction? Are there signs that you look for that are clearly saying it's time to pivot or it's time to adapt? And, we hear about your most successful products, but is there a long list of ones you did spend years working on, inventions that were ultimately abandoned? Or is it that things are leading into that next thing? I'd be curious to hear more on this.
So that is a most excellent question, because the challenge is, so we just discussed the fact that, creating a technology platform or a new technology is a long-term arduous world. For example, Amazon wasn't built overnight. And there are times when people said it will never be successful. An example of Amazon is that, Jeff wasn't making money on selling stuff and doing that. I mean, a lot of people were predicting that maybe he'd go out of business. But then he realized that the technology platform that he had built for this world store could be a business, and that's AWS. And that's actually the best business he's got. And so there's a bit of serendipity, but it's not really serendipity. Is that it's part of what he built, and he built from scratch, and nobody was doing it, and he did it better than Oracle and everybody else. And so what's really important to understand is that, yes, there are going to be changes. I never liked the word pivot. I mean, I understand the concept. I like the word adapt. Pivoting starts makes me think of, you're going to change 100 degrees or 90 degrees. I think that when you build, at least when you invent and create technology, you want to adapt. Things are not like, oh, geez, someone talked about this, I need to throw this away and do something else. That's kind of, if you're in the business of, direct response, direct marketing and that kind of stuff, and then maybe you throw this mailing away, you create a new one, you say that didn't work. Well, when you build technology, you don't do that. You don't throw things away. You adapt to things. So I think that's important. And what are the signs? That's probably one of the great challenges. Did the dinosaurs understand that a meteor had hit and that the vegetation would disappear and all the food would gone away because there was no more plants to feed the plant eaters that they were feeding on? Probably not. So you don't want to be a dinosaur, and it's better to be a little mouse mammal that can dig in, or something in the ocean. But the bottom line is that, do you see the signs? And sometimes you don't. And I think that's a difference between failure and success. And you have to be attentive. But then the counter thing, and I think that's really important. I see it a lot of times where, I mentor some people sometimes. The counter thing is people who are continually looking for these signs and continually, it can't have, a straight path. Take an example. Reed Hastings from Netflix. He adapted continually his business. He started selling CDs DVDs, and everybody thought that he was going to be out of business with Blockbuster and all these people. And then he had a team of people and all that. And then he realized that he's a technology guy, by the way. Before that, he was building technology. He's a technologist, really. And then he realized that, everything was going to be online and potentially streaming. And a lot of his team left, saying, this will never work, right? And he continued, and he built the infrastructure that made Netflix, right? That's really the thing. But he had to fight, years to show people that I will work. Well,
Right.
he adapted, but then he didn't pivot 900. It was an adaptation. It was the same concept. He just adapted, and adaptation is very important.
I think you're right. I think that's a much better word, because what it acknowledges is you're responding to the environment in which you're innovating in, and you're filtering that in. It's not as if you're burying your head in the sand and saying, I'm just making this thing. You want it to work and be relevant to the world as it evolves and changes as well. So thank you. I love that. Angelina Corona has asked a great question along these lines. You've repeatedly built these companies, which means hiring great employees. How do you find, what are the things you look for when you're hiring out your team to help you invent the future?
It's usually not one thing. Number one, it has to be passion. When you meet someone and you want to work with them, I'm passionate, my team's passionate. You want people to have some form of passion of what you do or what you want to do.
Yeah.
It has to be that passion. I mean, in what we do, in inventing, creating something, there has to be that passion. Now, as companies grow, it's harder. But, if you're a company of less than 500 people, and certainly of less than 20 or less than 100, you have to be that passion. You have to have that passion everywhere. So number one is passion. Then the second thing I do is I try to find people who are smart and can learn, as opposed to people who know everything, think they know everything, but are very, very rigid in what they do. I'd rather ask someone to figure that out, give them a little puzzle. That is something I get, and say, if you saw this and that and this happened, what do you think just happened? So something very simple, and just see how they react, how they approach the system. Then, depending on who you hire, like for example, if you hire an engineer, there is some basic stuff. You can ask a couple of questions and all that. But then if you hire someone who you want to work with, collaborate for a long time, and you want him to create things that make sense, you tell him, listen, imagine we had this problem. Why don't you go think about it and come back tomorrow and present your thoughts to me. Yeah. And that's part of the thing, not just simple, in 30 minutes, I'm going to decide who you are, because that's not going to happen. In 30 minutes, you can eliminate who you aren't, but you can't find out who people are. So the process of hiring is a very also arduous process. You have to put in the time to find the right people, or you will not find the right people. And then, of course, you have your whole team participate in the process, and you get everybody's opinion, because you're working with really smart people, and you want these smart people to give you their opinion, and you want to listen to them, even if they don't agree with you.
Yeah, no, I think that's so true. Do you work with any of the same people throughout multiple companies?
Yeah, I'm fortunate enough to have worked with some of Venkat, our VP of AI, and I have been working together for 25 years. And he's a PhD in computer vision, and he's great. We don't even have to think about things. And several of my team members we've been working together. And it's not by design, it's because our company goes public or our company gets acquired. And then after a few years, I get a call and say, hey, I want to be part of the band again. And say, come on over. And
That's
so
awesome.
that's always great. So you always was that. And I'm very lucky that we get a lot of, young people who are very enthusiastic, who know what we're doing and what we've done, and who get excited about what we're doing and want to be part of, a enthusiastic group of people. But yes, we have people who we worked with before.
I ask because something I've noticed about successful entrepreneurs is they often work with some of the same people, if not the same people. And I think early on in one's career, you can be a little short-term or transactional. But once I realized that was, hey, you are building relationships that you very well might enjoy and benefit for decades, is a different perspective.
Madeline, think about this. You're going to climb Mount Everest, because building a company is like, especially a technology company, is like, who do you want to work with? People who you can trust and you've climbed before, or do you want to have some rookie who never climbed before, who may have the wrong boots on?
Yeah, well, you're all stars. I mean, trust is a huge part of this, right?
But this said, you always want to have new blood, new people, new thinking, challenges to whatever you think, because things change, and the new generation of people coming out of university is great. You have people who grew up grew up digital, from age 3 or something like that. They were almost playing with their parents' iPad when they were 5 years old, and so it's great. Yeah, I think we're in a fantastic period of time where you get the best of both worlds. The people with experience and the people, who have a new perspective.
That does sound like a recipe for a winning team. I want to shift gears a little bit here and talk about patenting, because having patents has been an very important part of your journey, and something I also perceive you are proud about, as you should be. My understanding from having talked to you is that you and other members of your team are involved in drafting your patent applications. And I'd love to hear a little bit about why you do that, why it's important for inventors to be involved in the patent drafting process, if you agree.
So patents are very interesting. It's, are they important or are they not important? I think there are two things about patents. Number one is what people think, you got a patent and then you think you protect your IP, perhaps, and that's important. And it's great. We have, I do that all the time and all that. But remember, litigating a patent is a big deal. Protecting your IP with a patent is not obvious. There are examples of challenge like that, like what's happening between Apple and Massimo right now, for example, with a SPO. But really, for me, the importance of patents is getting through the process of validating a concept and with a team, and writing it down in a way that is different from what other people have done. Mm-hmm. And so I value the process of drafting a patent as much as what the patent actually means. Mm. And that is something you don't hear a lot. And so if you have companies like very large companies, IBM is very famous for that. They used to have a whole room full of lawyers, and they say, I have an idea for blue banana. Can you guys patent it? And then you have 10 lawyers that go and patent blue bananas, and they know nothing about bananas or the color blue, but they'll figure it out. They're smart lawyers. And it doesn't do anything for the organization, except at the end, they put a plaque up saying, we have a patent for blue bananas. And by the way, I have a continuation of that patent that says that I have a blue banana that I mixed up with a camel, and that's a running blue banana in the desert. So great. That's completely useless. It didn't do anything for the company, but they have a patent for a blue banana with a crossbred with a camel or something. So the bottom line is that, to me, the patenting process and the drafting process is as much part of getting the organization and the team, the key team who's going to work on something, to understand how we have to build something that's unique, creative, and that you can explain on a piece of paper in a fairly concise way, because the patent is fairly concise, before you start building some technology. So that's kind of a little different than most people think, and that's why I always work on drafting patents. At the end, there's of course an attorney that's looking at it and makes it look like something the patent office will read and all that. But we really focus on what it is that we're doing as a process.
Amazing. So for what I took away from that specifically is, like, much like how writing is an exercise to clarify your thinking, the exercise of drafting the patent application helps you clarify what it is you have invented and what might make it that point of difference from what's been done before and what's going to be done after you. That's fascinating.
You're absolutely right with that. You're absolutely right. I totally agree. That's a great way to think about it. Yeah, you write it down, but also as a team, because there's the anything you do in the company has to be team based. You're a team. It's not you. The company is not you. I'm the coach of the team. I don't. You can't play all positions. You're a team.
Yes. No, that makes a lot of sense. Do you have, so what I'm taking away from you is that you will invent with those team members. So you're drafting and working on the application together. Will you sit down side by side, or is it more kind of going back and forth on a draft online maybe?
All of the above. I mean, one of the things that happened during the pandemic is a simplification of the process.
Okay.
So it used to be that, the back and forth doesn't work as much. You had to all get in a room. But look, today's conversation we're having, probably 5 years ago, we would have said, oh, maybe we have to be in the same studio. Maybe, the thing. But now everybody, you've got your audience everywhere. You've got your, So I think we use all the digital tools that we all have, including, the Zooms and others, Slack and whatever it is. We use all of this to collaborate and work together. So a lot of times when you have, 4 or 5 people, it's much more convenient to do it that way than all get in a room. But we do all get in a room, and so working cooperatively is very important. And so these modern tools, just like we're having conversation right now, work. Yeah. You can ask me questions on an email, and I can take the time to answer them, or we can have a conversation like that. It's 2 different ways to interact, and then different things come out of it.
Yeah, that's very, very true. I just wanted to be able to visualize a little bit what that looked like, because so much of inventing happens that there won't be any photographs of. And I think for people that haven't been in those rooms and don't know what that's like, it can be hard to really understand what's happening.
Well, I mean, there's different things. So invention is a process.
Yeah.
There's the initial spark. And then there's what happens to that spark when you start thinking about it. And then what happens when you start thinking about it and you bring other people, or et cetera. Then there's the kind of invention when you're in a room with people or in a conversation with people, and as part of a brainstorming session, oh, wow, that's a great idea. That's more rare. Part of a brain session, you can refine things and think about it and all that. Original so-called invention usually is more of there's kind of a eureka moment a lot of times for core things, but they evolve and they refine, and it's the old allegorical thing where you take a block of granite, and there's people who see a block of granite, and some people see a lion in there and can chisel it and make the lion appear. And that's really seeing. If you see the lion and then you can guide people to help you do the lion and make a better lion, or a better looking lion, or a roaring lion, or running lion, whatever. But initially you have to see the lion.
Yeah, no, I think that makes so much sense. Is there anything or any place or any activity that brings on eureka moments for you as you look past, or if you're like, hey, oh man, this problem is really challenging, I'm going to go do this or spend time in this way? Or is it completely random?
We function like generative AI a little bit, where whatever our thoughts are a product of history, whatever is in your subconscious, whatever is everywhere. My experience is that you're constantly drawing on things, and there's a lot of parallel thinking thing. Sometimes you're sleeping and you wake up and it says, oh, or maybe it takes a week, and after a week you hadn't thought about something comes up. I don't know of a real creative process that allows things. If you try to solve a problem and you think about the problem and you do it enough times, it's like, in mathematics, we have a thing where, you're trying to solve a problem and you get back to it and you get back to it. And every time you get back to it, you understand it better and you're better at it. It's like reading science books. I think Einstein used to say that, people think you can read a science book, and once you get to page 26 and you can't understand, just throw it away. It's too much for you. Einstein used to say, when you do a science book, you read it. If you stop if on 26 you get stuck because it gets too complicated, it's a concept you don't understand. So Einstein goes, then no, you don't stop. You start at page 1, even if you think you got it all, and you reread it all that. And guess what? By the time you get to page 26, you can get to page 29, and you keep on the process. So I think there's a little bit of that going on. So there's the initial thought, and then there's the patience of cultivating that thought.
Interesting. I love that. I have $1 million question for you, which is, what makes a patent valuable?
I think there's two things. Number one, the collaborative process and your personal process in putting things down and writing them down, as you very well said. If you write it down, you're probably better, Rob. And then is the fact that if it's truly original, and if you describe in your patent something that others would have to do, then it has value. Look at there's plenty of very famous patent litigations examples. The latest one right now, and I don't know if the patent is valid or not, but there's a company called Massimo, which is an LA company, that had the patent of a way to do oxygen saturation with PPG sensors, and I guess that Apple put that in the Apple Watch, and they sued Apple, and the litigation lasted for 3 years or whatever it is, and now Apple had to take it out of their watch, and so litigation for patents it takes a long time. I mean, then I'm sure the Court of Appeals may rule in favor of Apple, and then it's Massimo. So it might take another 5 years. But if you have a business to defend, maybe it makes sense. Personally, I don't like litigation. Patents are valuable. I see them as defensive. If we build technology and there's patents around it, if someone's trying to sue us for patent, they know we'll countersue them, and it's a dissuasive effect. It's the sake that it's the old Roman saying, "Si vis pacem para bellum," which means if you want peace, prepare for war. So that's, to me, that's a value of patents, but beyond the idea of writing it down.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I guess a follow-up question I have specifically related to the Massimo case, which I did hear a presentation from the entrepreneur and inventor Joe Chiani just last night. So I'm glad we're talking about this. Can you give us any insights on how you make the decision of what to patent, which makes that public, and what maybe to keep as a trade secret? or some advice you might share as the inventors and entrepreneurs on this call suss that out for themselves?
Well, I think the Massimo case is a little different because from my understanding of it, is that Apple went to them and they disclosed some trade secrets to them. So it's a combination of the fact that Apple spent a lot of time looking at a technology, said they wanted to create a collaborative effort, and then went home and then did it alone with what Massimo says they learned from the process. It's very possible. IP litigations are always complicated. When it happens between two high-tech companies, it is quite often the case of what you see with Massimo and Apple, where it's a combination of patents and trade secrets. And that is how a lot of us protect our technology. Let me clarify in the following way. If I put everything we do in a patent, if the patent gets issued, the patent becomes essentially a public thing. And so everybody sees how we do things. And when they look at how we do things, they can try to devise a way to do something similar, getting around our invention, right? So that's kind of the idea. So you don't want to put everything you do in patents because of that, because basically you give a roadmap to people in some way, or a counter roadmap, or whatever it is. And so a lot of times, some of what you do, you keep in trade secrets and technology. I'm talking about technology, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense for other things you may patent. And so, so trade secrets are very important. And so a lot of the protection you can get is through trade secrets. And that's a very important part of what happens. And that's why, the passion of your team members and all that is really important, because, they have to be passionate about what they do, because the team is the guardians of the trade secrets, really.
Yeah.
If you think about it. It's not a piece of paper. It's not a safe. It's the team. It's our trade secrets. It's our team. And so this is why it's so important to have a great team and have people who are passionate.
Yes. No, that actually stuck out to me, that if you have great people who work for you, I've now heard it repeatedly of, sometimes, unfortunately, it's people who are working closely with you that then will, they'll go and work with a competitor, and that becomes a really big and challenging issue.
Well, that's one of the issues I think that Massimo has, is some of their employees went to work for Apple.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. Let's shift gears though. Something that really struck me that was incredible was just how many amazing companies you've partnered with, or Fullpower AI has partnered with, to deploy its technology. I'm curious if you can take us through that a little bit. You've worked with Nike, you've worked with Stryker, you've worked with just such a wide range. How do you present your ideas? How do you take away risk? I'm so curious how that happens. Whatever you can share, we'd love to know.
So yes, and there's two ways in which these things happen. One is you hire a whole business development sales organization, and you put them to work, and you do that. When you're a startup, it's really difficult to do, and so typically you try to identify someone you can help, and you try to figure out how you can help them. So yes. With Nike, when we partner with Nike, Nike was at a time where the App Store was opening up, and they were trying to build something that was better than anybody else, a running app that was better than anybody else. Yeah. In order to do that, they had some technology challenges, which is, how do you make a running app that is in your pocket on your iPhone that is accurate? And that's the problem we solve with our sensing and basically creating something more complicated than just listening to the GPS, because the app. I don't want to get into details, but I'll say the following. GPS doesn't work all the time. If you're in an urban canyon, if you're in a forest, you lose control and all that. So we built a system that took into account what was happening with the sensors, what was the GPS, and also topographical maps to actually increase the accuracy of the system we had in terms of describing your path, your speed, and your performance. So that was a difficult problem that we solved, that we could solve with our sensing technology and what we had done. I was lucky to know someone who had just been hired from Apple at Nike to do digital technology, and that was Michael Chow. Michael now I think running iPads and something else at Apple. He went back to Apple, and so I gave Michael a call and say, hey, I think I can help you. And he came to Santa Cruz, and then we went to Nike in Oregon, and we built this thing. So that's how it happened. And a lot of times, you have to work pretty hard at those first, we call them reference accounts. When you build a technology platform, you need those reference accounts that give you that credibility, and that's, a lot. We're doing that right now with our generative AI technology, because, kind of our mission is to use generative AI to upend the world of IoT, Internet of Things, smart connected device, into something we kind of came up with a new acronym. We call it AIoT, which is the AI of things. So in that respect, we look for reference accounts that we could help that really needed what we were doing.
Okay, got it. So you're thinking, this is a direction we're headed in. Who can we help using this technology? And you're reaching out to them. You're not waiting for people to come to you. They don't really know what you're working on if you're also in stealth mode before you have these large accounts, right?
That's exactly right.
Okay.
That's totally right. You can't putting things on the shelf or even not on the shelf and hoping that partners will come is presumptuous, to say the least. I mean, there are a lot of smart people out there. There's a lot of people doing stuff, and so you have to be able to find people you can really help and get to them. I mean, get to them is challenging sometimes. You have, a blind email usually doesn't work.
Yes, no, getting in, finding that champion at that larger company who's going to listen to you, who wants to talk about innovation, who actually wants to do innovation, can be a hurdle in and of itself.
That's absolutely right.
Does your name and reputation help at this point in your career, or is it like every time? No, it's really about what you're doing for them.
It's a combination of both. Most of the time it helps a lot. Sometimes it hasn't. Where it hasn't is if it's a company you're competing with and you probably did well against some guy who worked over there, they probably don't like you. But most of the time it's very helpful because it's a kind of reputation thing. I think that after this being my fourth company, and I'm lucky enough, I'll knock on wood here, I have a wooden table. I've never failed my partners, my customers, and my employees. And so that gives you a certain amount of credibility when you say, hey, we're building this. We don't quite have it, but we can make it work for you. People kind of give you the benefit of that. But you still have to deal with all the usual stuff. Oh, we can build this ourselves. Why do we need you? And there's 5 other people who are building something similar. I mean, that happens all the time. Why are you better? I mean, you have to always answer those questions. Why it makes sense. I mean, it's always your reputation goes so far. It maybe opens the door. Once the door is open, it's hand-to-hand combat.
That makes so much sense. I love that you just put it that way. Why should we pay you? Why should we work with you? I feel like those are questions every inventor, regardless of they're even doing entrepreneurship, faces.
And usually, remember, when you're a small company, you're probably dealing with a big company, a large company.
Right.
And the large company, there's always someone who wants to build something like what you have in there, or has a better idea how to make it.
Got it.
I have a perfect example, which is a pharma company. We do a lot of clinical trials and what we do and all that, and a very large company. And there's one person in there who just absolutely needs what we have. They're really, and he continually kicks the tires and always goes away and never does anything. And I'm going, your competitor is going to do it. And he says, well, we think we can do it. I say, okay, fine, come back in 6 months. And it just happens all the time. And you live with that. You think that maybe one day it'll change, but you have to accept that you're not going to get 100% success.
I think that's a really important point. I want to talk a little bit now about maybe some more personal topics. You made a really beautiful post in honor of one of your mentors, the pioneering computer scientist, Nicholas Wirth. I'm curious if you could share a little bit about the role that mentorship has played in your inventing career, and if you have advice for establishing a relationship with a mentor.
So I was very lucky I really had two mentors. When I immigrated to the US from France, when I come here, I got to meet very much accidentally one of the founders of Intel, Andy Grove, who was also an immigrant. He immigrated from Hungary. And he kind of helped me out a lot because he knew what I was, he was a technologist too, and came to Silicon Valley and made it happen. I mean, he was part of the Intel founding team. And so he helped me a lot. I knew nothing about business. I'm a technical person by background. And so I knew nothing about business. So he helped me a lot understanding, Andy is the author of he just passed away, but I still think of him as president of a book called Only the Paranoid Survive. And he told me, remember, you're getting into high tech. You got to be paranoid to survive, paranoid about your technology, what you do, and your ideas, because once you do anything good, everybody's going to try to steal it. So that he was a great mentor for that. But because I knew nothing about business, and then he explained a lot of how business worked. From a earlier time when I was studying in Zurich, I was fortunate enough to study with Professor Wirth, which is kind of one of the fathers of modern computer science. And I was really young when I went into college and at the university in Zurich. And he was building some of the first development tools. And I was lucky enough to be part of that. And I really liked it. He was a quirky, very demanding person, but that fitted me because not that many people at the time, because he had new ideas, wanted to work with him, but that gave me an opportunity to work in a team of 5 or so, and we stayed friends until he passed away on January 1st. He passed away this year, and he was 87 or 89. Oh, geez. I'm not sure. And he kept on coming here to Silicon Valley because he lectured at Stanford and Berkeley and all that. And, we would always get together for dinner and have long discussions, and we would always have conversations. I had a Zoom video with him, a little before he passed away, which is very sad. And this is a man who was as sharp as ever, a couple of weeks before he passed. And so he was a fantastic mentor, and I was lucky to know him for 40 years or something like that. So that was very important to me. And if you can find somebody like that, that's great. But that could be somebody different. It could be your parents, it could be someone you meet, it could be somebody else. Professional mentors, I'm always concerned about. I think that there has to be a little bit of serendipity. I don't know. I like the mystery of serendipity, and you're not sure who exactly you're going to meet. I'm not sure there's a Tinder for mentors.
A Tinder for, no, I would agree with that. And I think it has to be quite organic and authentic. Okay, I've got a couple last questions for you. I'm curious to hear your advice for inventors, and perhaps especially young inventors.
Oh God, it's so hard to give advice to people. I think the first thing is if you're an inventor, AI is going to have a big impact on whatever you do because everything learns now and everything learns from data. So the first thing you have to make sure that you are current. You know what the tools are. You know what generative AI is, what deep learning is, uh, machine learning, etc. And at least you get it, uh, because you can't invent anything without understanding that predictions are going to be a key to whatever you're building. Uh,
Mm.
the second thing is you got to be passionate about it. You can't just say I'm going. I mean, maybe it's something I don't know about, but I if you just want to make money, I have a recommendation for people. It's very simple. You go to your basement, you build a machine that prints banknotes, and you make money. But that can't just be the goal of, oh, I want to be a business, I want to be a successful entrepreneur, I want to be that. No, if you're an inventor and you're a technologist and all that, you want to be a technologist, you want to be passionate when you uh, the financial success has to come as a consequence of the value you bring with whatever new you're building. Something, it's kind of the invention. It's not, that's really that would be my advice. My advice is don't follow the money, follow the innovation, follow the technology, whatever you feel like you're passionate about.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. Follow a passion.
Well,
Okay.
everybody, I guess that every commencement speech at every university says, you little students, you should follow your passion. And everybody says that. But I think you should follow your passion for invention, because my passion is to shoot up Aaron. I don't want to follow that. I don't think the idea of following your passion is a good idea, or or be happy. My passion is happiness. That's great. Happiness is great, but happiness is earned rather than comes because, oh, I'm happy. Sorry,
Right.
it's a matter of philosophy.
Maybe follow your curiosity as an inventor. It seems to be an important thing, like what animates you yourself, what you want to learn more about, maybe.
Now, curiosity is an interesting thing. Is that learned or is that acquired? Is that cultivated? And that's really something. Can you cultivate passion, curiosity, and all that? And that's
Yeah.
really something. But I think it is. People, if people don't know the beauty of learning, I was lucky to grow up at a time where France had a very good educational system. See, I was in a very public school, kind of in a public school. I was awarded in the nation because of family circumstances, but I ended up in a fantastic school where I love going to school. And I see a lot of people learning about history, geography, geology, mathematics, and all that. It was really, really interesting. And I think that's you learn that. I think a lot of people, schools sometimes don't do a good job for kids at teaching that curiosity, as you said. That's a great word. That, oh, it's great, I learned something new today. Wow, what a concept. A lot of people don't, unfortunately, they don't get that great feeling of, I learned something new today.
Yes. No, I'd completely agree with you. And thank you for sharing that. I would imagine you would have been an excited learner, but it's good to know. I want to touch just real briefly. We talked about passion. Something that really stood out to me when we met first was that you have obviously had this absolutely phenomenal professional career, but you have a lot of other passions too. And let's see, Angelina asks, do you play flute? Is open or closed your favorite? And if you do play, I think she maybe knows that you do. Does that help with your creativity?
Well, my mother was a professional musician, so I grew up with a concert violinist in the house, and I had to when she was still alive, I had to play for 30 minutes in the morning before I went to school. So,
Oh,
I pursued both masters in math and a masters in flute performance and composition at the same time. Then I decided that I wanted to do the technology side, but music has remained my daily practice. Is kind of how I relax. So that question is really on for me. It's really an important part of what I do, and
mm,
I absolutely I play every day. I play flute, I play clarinet, I play saxophone, I play orchestra thing. So uh, I love music, and it's several hours of my days in little chunks. A lot of times are part of music. Music's very important to me.
mm. That's so cool. I love that. As far as I understand, you also are a sailor and a surfer and a backcountry skier, being outside and being active. How do you make time for those things, Philippe?
Well, I live right on the Santa Cruz Harbor, so it's very easy for me to get down, take a boat out for an hour, and come back in a sailboat. So that is more opportunistic than it is. I don't spend a lot of time doing it. Most of my time is really spent as we described. But yes, sailing has been a great way to relax. And I went to the Zurich as a school because it was a school where Einstein studied and then taught. And I was always interested. As Einstein was fascinated with sailing and music. He was kind of a role model for me. So, as you know, Einstein would play his violin several hours a day and get a
Mm,
lot of his inspiration from that. So I do a bit of the same thing with playing music and flute in particular. But he also discovered sailing pretty early, and
mm.
and he would go out and sail, get lost, and they had to rescue him a lot of times. And he'd think about a lot of things because it's a great way to think and be quiet and not be interrupted and all that. So they all go well together in some way, but there's only so many hours during the day.
Right. That's okay. That makes so much sense. Out there on the open seas, you're looking out, maybe your mind is more expansive than it is in other places. That makes sense. And I didn't know that about Einstein. Amazing. Um, we are drawing to a bit of a close here. We did get a little bit of a late start. Everyone who's joined us, please, if you have any last questions for Philippe, now is the appropriate time to leave them in the chat. I would also be so appreciative if you could offer some thanks for him. I've absolutely loved this conversation. I hope the rest of you have also found great value in it. What's the best way of people following and keeping up with your innovations and what you're doing next, Philippe?
I think the best way is probably um, through social networks like LinkedIn or something like that, or that's probably, and our website, fullpowerai.com or something like that. And my email, I'm Philippe at fullpower.com.
Thank
Uh,
you.
so that works too. So I'm pretty good usually responding to these things, but sometimes I get a lot of it, but eventually I get to it.
Wonderful. Well, that's amazing that you do that, and we appreciate it. I would love to hear again what you thought, guests, attendees of today's event. Thank you so much for writing your questions into the chat, for showing up live, for offering your thanks. We welcome your feedback. You can email support@idiyas.com. You can contact me on LinkedIn. Please let us know, who would you like to meet? What kind of inventions do you want to talk about? And until next time, keep inventing. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.